All right, everyone. Welcome to Headspace Live. I'm really excited. We're adding this new Wednesday at noon Central thing. And basically, what we're going to do is with Headspace Live is we're going to bring in a topic. We're going to go about all kinds of tangents. We're going to bring an expert or two on this topic, and we're going to just pick his brain, his or her brain. So today we're going to talk about health and wellness, hacks, cold plunges, habits, accelerating the future of human health, all of that stuff. And in a minute, we'll meet my wonderful co-host, my friend Brandon Knicely, who's the managing partner of Third Drive Capital, and Dr. Dave Heitmann. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Dave, but you'll correct me in a second. But if you guys are ready, we're ready. Leave us comments or questions. We're happy to take them. Here we go. All right, let's bring some people in onto the stage. All right. So, guys, thank you so much for joining, Brandon. Dude, why don't you introduce our esteemed guest?
Our esteemed guest, just happy to know Dr. Dave Heitmann. What a great guy. We're actually just all here in Austin, Texas, and good buddies. But I think I met Dave a while back when we were looking at precision health dynamics and thinking about some of how do we live forever kind of thing. Right. And so Dr. Dave has been on a mission to accelerate sort of the new age of digital health and human performance. He's an inventor. He's treated over 10,000 patients, many of those pro athletes. He had a sports medicine clinic. He's been in the space of proactive health. And Dave, I think we met back when we were you were looking at trying to move the needle in terms of an application that actually could be proactive in helping people to develop their health
Yep.
and wellness. So with that, welcome to the show. Happy to
Yeah.
see you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
yeah, tell me
Excited to be
anything I
here.
missed. Did I miss anything significant there?
No, I mean that's the summary. I mean the gray beard says it all. 30 years in the industry, and yeah, I've had over 10,000 patients in sports medicine. I've worked with the Olympics, the pros, all the way down to youth at every different level. I've worked with hospital organizations, corporations, you name it. I've been there and done that kind of thing, and now I'm in tech, which is how we came across each other because we both have this love and passion for longevity, epigenetics, like what is the future actually holding, the edge of health kind of stuff. And you and I hit it off, and you became kind of a mentor for me in the tech industry because I've had a rough road of building companies around getting tech people involved to follow my craziness of what I'm trying to create.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. I think part of where we sort of connected was around this idea of epigenetic health. But what does
Yep.
that mean? What does epigenetics
Yeah, we
mean
can dive right in. Yeah, this is awesome. So
from your
epigenetics is
perspective? Yeah.
yeah, epigenetics. I like to describe this as um, so we have the things that we are born with. This is called our genetics. This is our blueprint, our code that we get from our mom and dad. We're all very familiar with that. But we have this thing called epigenetics, which is actually the expression of those genes. So just because we have a gene doesn't mean that it's getting utilized in our body. And so I actually describe this down into two different categories of epigenetics. One is we have generational epigenetics, which is really cool studies around this. We have anywhere from 3 to 4, all the way up to 7 generations worth of information packed onto our DNA of previous generations of what they went through. Like we can look at Holocaust survivors and actually look at stress histones wrapped around the DNA, and we can see that for 4 generations after the Holocaust
Are
that
you
these people
serious?
have anxiety and things of that nature. That is a generational epigenetic
So,
expression of things.
so this is not Dave. This is not just the core code. This is actually lived experiences have
Yeah.
an imprint on the genetic code. Is that what you're saying?
Yep, exactly. Because everything that goes on around us, this is what epigenetics is all about, right? If I embark on an exercise program, I'm actually manipulating my chemistry, I'm manipulating my genetics to express more things, to build protein, to be at a lower set weight, to have better hormones, right? So that is what epigenetics actually is. And this is one of the big misconceptions in health right now is we're looking at these 23andMe data and thinking that that's what our reality is right now,
Oh,
when the
wow.
reality is actually what is actually being expressed. And that's why to me epigenetics is the actual future. Genetics is like a great starting point of what you have as a base. Like we can understand, do you have fast metabolism of coffee or slow metabolism of coffee based off of your genetics? So there's foundational things that we can look at in the genes, but more importantly is the epigenetic expression of what's going on. And that's really where the true, I think the future of longevity comes in, is there are little messaging systems across our body of telling us to do this or that on how healthy our body should be.
And when you're saying this seems impossibly complex when you're saying those things to me,
Yes.
you know, because genetics alone, like 23andMe, to me, is a miracle. You go, oh wow, you're predisposed to this and not this, and all of those things.
Yep.
But what you're doing is you're adding a whole universe of complexities and
Right.
interactive sort of factors to it. How is that even measured?
Well, and that's been the hard part, is this is why
Yeah.
I think AI is coming to save health, is that it's impossible for the human brain to fully understand this. And this is why a lot of doctors get it wrong. And this is why a lot of experts get it wrong, is that there's just simply too much information to understand for the human brain. And I think in this near future, we're actually going to have some technology that will help solve us these issues. Like when we exercise, we're stimulating 4,000 to 6,000 different genes at a time. There's no way one human being researcher is going to sit down and be like, oh, let's make the correlations between these 4,000 genes of what's going on. No, it's not going
It's
to happen.
impossible. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
So,
this is where technology is going to really help save this equation.
So
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 this leads us
Brandon,
into, yeah, go
Brandon,
ahead.
can I ask? Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
actually ask Brandon sort of a related question. Is that Brandon? Of course, he's a startup guy. He is a managing partner of Third Drive Capital. So you look at deals like this that of the future. I'm assuming, right, of technology that will do this work for us
Yep.
and save us in ways that can't even fathom. Brandon, what is that? Can I ask you real quick? What does that look like from the standpoint of developing this kind of technology, funding it, making it mainstream, and all of that?
Yeah. So there's kind of a real difference between science and making money. And those
Right.
are the two sort of ranges of fields of expression of that. But I think what's really interesting, as Dave alluded to, is this is obviously very complex. You can imagine all the potential expressions. And then how does that get expressed for you? Right. So there's a personalization around this. And I think what's really interesting is the whole field of epigenetics. But then as we progress and develop models that represent, how these high dimensional things interact, that's interesting. And people have done that. Where I think the next phase is developing high dimensionality models and then helping you as an individual know what to do and or how this moves the needle, quote unquote, for you, right? And then we need business models that actually are effective at managing that. So I have, now that's a really interesting, so to me, there's a tremendous movement in this. I mean, there are X prizes out there. There's all kinds of people that have done things trying to move the needle on personalized medicine. That's been a discussion for a long time. But I think that the science and really that intersection between science and the business model is just sort of getting there. And I think over the next 5 years is going to be a tremendous opportunity for investment. Dave, I'm curious what your thoughts are. I know you're working on a personalized insight engine,
Yep.
and you and I have been discussing this together for some time. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on how we make this practical from a development perspective.
Yeah, you got to love the pie, personal insight engine. It is it is the future. It's very practical. It's actually way closer than we all can imagine. It's one of those things now. The beauty of the past 5 years has been this overwhelming amount of connectivity starting to happen, of APIs connecting to each other, central data streams being able to flow into one central hub for your data. So in other words, I can take my Garmin, I can take my Whoop and Aura and all connect them into one place and measure back and forth. We're starting to see the early stages of people being able to put blood work and genetics together. And so I think that we're finally getting to that stage where there's enough connectivity and people are playing nice together, because we all realize that the future of personalized medicine is having, instead of just this snapshot of blood work once a year, which does nothing for anyone, we can have continuous streams of data coming in about what we're doing. And the trending line of things is way more important than the actual snapshot of things. And so when we look at cholesterol, or when we look at your A1C, any of those types of numbers, it's way more important on where it's going than where it is. And so that's the beauty of technology. It's all here. It's just we're finally starting to put it together. And there's some really, really cool tech around it too.
Okay, so let's just for a second go futuristic. In
Yeah.
5 years, Dave, what will we be able to do?
Yeah,
as
this
human
is one of my
beings?
favorite topics. People love hearing this and hate hearing it all at the same time.
Yeah.
But your primary care is going to go away, and it's going to be replaced by your bathroom. And I use this as a key concept when I talk to people, because it gives people the reality of everything I'm about to tell you already actually exists, and they're working on connecting it. So we already have things that sit in your toilet that can measure your urine and stool on an every single day basis.
Okay.
We already have mirrors that can track scars and moles and everything like that. All you have to do is dance in front of the mirror, and it will be able to track if that mole is getting cancerous or not, or if that scar from your surgery is healing.
Dave, there's some people who shouldn't be dancing in front of me.
Yeah, right.
Probably not. Yeah.
But it is that simple, and that's why I put it that way, is that our bathroom is going to have epigenetic sensors where we'll just be able to take a cotton swab and stick it into this little machine, and it'll measure what kind of infection we have if we're feeling sick, because it'll be able to measure the DNA sequence of whatever bugs and stuff are in our mouth. And all of this will flow into a central hub that'll make meaning of it. And so we're already there, and we're already at this point where these devices and these data streams are more powerful than any primary care can even start to comprehend around you. Seeing them once a year does nothing from building a standpoint of who you are as a person. And so in the next 5 years, this is the type of disruptions that are going to happen that, it's going to completely upend the healthcare system. It's going to completely upend the health insurance system. And I'm really excited to see this, because for the first time in human history, we're going to be able to think of people as individuals, not population cohort studies.
Yes.
Of, oh, this must be good for everyone if it's good for the 100 people we did research on.
Do you think the adoption speed of adoption is going to be actually that fast? And
It
obviously we're
is.
talking about the Western world, right? We're
Yep.
talking about the
Yeah.
US, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, exactly. That we're already hitting that hockey stick growth.
we are.
And the explosion of AI has just we were already at 5 years ago, there was around 4,000 research articles coming together every month, let's just say in the epigenetic field, which is impossible for the human brain to read all of those. Now we have AI for the past 2 years that AIs are building other AIs to read all that research and make meaning of it. And so
Right.
we've already hit this escape velocity in the healthcare field. It's really in this next 5 to 10 years. That's why the X Prize, $101 million prize, is for 7 years from now, that we're going to cure aging from a longevity standpoint.
That was
Okay,
actually my next
I
question.
have
We
to
are
jump.
that
I have to
close.
jump. Go ahead, Christian. I have to jump in with a little bit of I don't want to be a naysayer, but a little bit of sort of practical sort of challenges, right? I think to the adoption in that time frame. But go ahead, Chris, if you want to follow on. I want to come back at some level and put a little bit of water on the fire here.
So I have two things in mind that, and you can obviously correct me if that's not the best sort of order of things. But the first thing is this: is like I'm looking at a chart of life expectancy in the U.S. right now, and I can see the thing going up and to the right, and then dipping quite significantly recently. And I'm just curious about why do you think that is? And the second question is if we are, I mean, after Brandon throws some water on this, can we bring it back to the present for some time and sort of discuss? Okay, that revolution is happening, is unfolding. We don't have the mirror, we don't have the cotton swab, the toilet is not spying on our urine and stool yet. What can we do now to actually make it to the next 5-10 years and not die, right? Unnecessarily. What can we do now? Changes we can do now to extend both the quality of our health and life and emotional health, and the length of our life. So, two questions, broad strokes. But what the first one's probably the longevity in the U.S. dipping. Is that unique to the U.S. in the Western world, or is it across the board?
I'll let Brandon throw some water on the fire first.
Go for it.
Christian, do you have a chart you can show on that, or is that something you're just referring to?
I'm looking at it right now. I can see if I can.
Because we haven't seen it, so I don't know that we can comment if we haven't seen it.
Oh,
but while you're doing that, maybe my comment is, listen, I love, I'm a futurist as well and an optimist. Unfortunately, sometimes that can be a negative thing, especially as a capital person. You got to be really careful. But I've been sort of a CTO type and crossed over for 4 decades. I've been doing this since the 80s, right? So I'm going to just put a little bit of governance on, or a little bit of governing sort of element on this. I think that what I've learned, I think in these years, is things take twice as long as you think they're going to take, and they cost twice as much. So I always measure by a factor of 4, just practically. So I think Dave's right. In 20 years, I think we'll get there. But I think the point is the technology is there to do it. The question will be, when does this become economically feasible? When do the business models support the actual adoption of the average Joe? Now, what I think is true is if you're a high net worth person that can afford spending $250,000 a year on your health, then yeah, some of these things are available currently. But I'm talking about for mass adoption for the Western to the current today's medicine, and for that shift, it's less a technological shift and more an ideological and infrastructure shift that will slow this thing down. And so I think what's interesting though, Dave, and I think you'll agree with this, there's always an 80-20 principle, right? There's 80% of the people that are sort of caught in the current paradigm, and there's a 20% that are kind of adopting new things, right?
Yep.
And so I think that's one of the things that we're learning. The 80% will be kind of like the laggards that learn over time, while the early adopters are the ones that actually take on these new opportunities for proactive health. And so my question would be, and this may be whenever we get into it, what are the things we can do now? And that the actual 20% are doing now, they can actually move the needle in this idea of taking your epigenetics and improving whatever hand you've been dealt with, right?
Yeah. And for clarification too, it's the things that I'm talking about are from the standpoint of if we switch into more lifestyle medicine versus healthcare. Lifestyle medicine doesn't require the hoops that you have to jump through. Like if a new pharmaceutical comes out today and we think that it's really promising to cure every cancer, it's still going to take 10 years to get cleared through the FDA, through research and everything like that.
Dude, there are forces that will resist that. I'm just saying,
exactly.
There's real life and
so that's where Brandon
is
exactly correct. Of like right now, even when we look at implementation from best research practices in hospitals to when they actually are best research and to the time that it gets implemented into a hospital is 17 years right now. Is that much of a delay before it actually gets implemented into a hospital system
in the 21st century? That's
in the 21st century. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So by the time you go to your doctor, they're so far behind on what the actual research is saying. So what I'm talking about when I say in 5 to 7 to 10 years, these are a lot of lifestyle based recommendations, of which we can get into from the now standpoint, because it is exercise, it's sun, it's water, it's all of the core principles that we all need to talk
So
about.
what
So
you're
that's
saying, yeah, so what you're saying is that we might have all these FDA obstacles and perhaps even conflicting off business interests that might slow some of these things down, and will for sure. What you're saying is that there's probably going to be some sort of accelerated revolution in even reading the data that doesn't require perhaps that kind of
exactly, yeah.
bureaucracy, and then because you have the data, you can adjust the lifestyle and all of that stuff. Correct? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah. So if we can prevent something from being medically necessary by lifestyle intervention, that's what's going to happen in the next 5 years. That's what I'm truly excited about, is that you're not going to get to the point where you get diabetes, because we're going to be able to detect it so early in you that it's not a pre-diabetes or a diabetes situation. It's a, hey, you were here, now you're here. Let's see if I can fit that into this little window.
Dave, I love your optimism, man. I am like so far, I'll follow you anywhere. Here's the thing, like you're like a country boy like me. You grew up in Wisconsin, right? Like, I'm in like West Virginia. We grew up on the farm, and we're in these environments. You know, it's like we don't learn these things. Like my parents had no clue around anything that was health oriented, right? Best thing we had Spam, and we had
oh wow,
pig's feet. So basically, let's talk about some of the things that today, like now. What are the things that we can do now? All right, go, Christian.
Let me pull out the chart. Here's the chart. So this is the chart I was referring to, and you can see a dip. I mean, is that? I mean, it can't just be COVID. It has to be more than that, right? Because it's around 2020.
There's been a lot of debate on why this little dip has happened, and to me, honestly, I'm much less concerned about life expectancy as I am health span. Because I think if we ask ourselves the right questions, the right question are, how do we improve health span, not lifespan?
Yes.
Because it is easy to keep people alive.
They
could be brain dead. They could be all sorts of different stuff. We can keep them going.
Oxygen tanks. They pull them around. It's like
one of the big concepts I did want to bring on the podcast today, since this is a little beautiful triangle of business and health and longevity, is that Harvard Business Review really had a great published study come out about 2 years ago that the best businesses are started at the age of 45. Is that when you're 45, you're finally ready, you have a big enough network, you have enough knowledge that you can start your businesses and have it grow the fastest and be the most successful. Now, unfortunately, our health span starts to decline at age 55, with 64 hitting this big cliff where we see, if you were to bring up a health span graph, instead of 77, in the 70s, where it's life expectancy, health span dips dramatically off at 64, and then from 64 until we die, it's like 98% of our healthcare costs. It's where all the cancers, disability, hip breaks, all of those sorts of things happen. And so to me, I'm after this mission of productive health span. Productive health span is, if you start your business at 45 and you have to start giving it up at age 54, 55 because of health reasons, to me, that's a crying shame, because you're just getting going. And as we just talked about, business takes a long time.
It does. Yep.
10, 20 years to start to get good at it. And so you're just starting to peak out, and then your health gives away. And then all of that knowledge and all of that wisdom goes away because you got unhealthy. So how can we actually increase this productive health span to get people to 74? Because theoretically, then they're starting a whole nother company that's going to be really good for humanity, because they know how to manage people. They know how to lead and inspire and create really good visions and impact for the world. So to me, that's like a personal quest of, how do we improve health span?
Thank you for saying that, because you're speaking my language, brother. Because you're right. I mean, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, right? You do one company, the second, the third one. By the fourth one, perhaps in your maybe mid 40s or 50s, you have probably hit like a sweet spot of vision and quality, and sort of you're at the peak of both physical form and wisdom.
Yep.
And what a shame would that be, right? To start something at that peak and have 5 years to do it at full speed. I mean, that is a beautiful thing you just said.
Yeah. So to me, it's, productive health span is where we can start to go from an entrepreneur crew. But also, too, like if you really do think about it, the American dream, a lot of people have this misconception of, I'm going to retire and then. And unfortunately, like very clearly, the data shows that they don't have their health when that and then happens.
Yeah.
And I even have a personal experience with this. My dad, 2 weeks after retirement, tripped, fell, broke his neck, and became a quadriplegic after that.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just, of course, that's a freak accident, but it's just proof in the pudding that, we work our whole lives. So even the average person that's not an entrepreneur, we keep pushing it off of, I'm going to travel to Alaska when I retire, or I'm going to go on that thing. And it almost statistically never happens because we start to decline in health so quickly at that 54, 55 age that when we do retire, we basically have a 2-year lifespan if we don't have any productivity and all of the things that go into what it means to be a healthy human being.
So let's talk about what can we do now? give us a okay. What from the top of highest 80/20, right?
Yes.
Highest ROI. What are the top 3 things maybe we can like? I'm 54. I'm going to turn 55 in March, so in a month and a half.
There you go.
And I've been I've been at it. I've been working on optimizing all this stuff. But what are the top 3 things that I could look at and go, okay, this is going to give you a much better ROI at your age, for example?
I'm actually going to not give a typical answer here from the standpoint of I'm going to give you frameworks, not a to-do list.
Okay.
Because I think frameworks are better for overall people of understanding that there's a lot of misconceptions that just aren't sexy out there. And so when we look at marketing and we look at diet industry and we look at biohacking and we look at all these health hacks and things of that nature, what we do know from a scientific standpoint is that consistency is the number one thing overall. So no matter what you're doing, consistency is way more important than intensity. Consistency is way more important than that fancy trainer that you're hiring to make the most best amazing plan for you in the world. We know that if you get out for a 10-minute walk every single day, that is going to be more powerful than you trying to figure out how to go run a marathon.
Yeah.
And so consistency is step 1. Step 2 is constantly put yourself into a slightly uncomfortable position so that you can continue to grow. And that can mean a lot of different things. That can mean go talk to new people that you've never talked to before. It can mean going into your pool, into the cold water. It can mean going out for a walk in the rain. It can be, just whatever that is just slightly uncomfortable for you.
Can I ask you a specific questions about this? So
Yeah.
when you say uncomfortable, do you mean physically uncomfortable or psychologically or both?
All of the above.
Really?
Yeah. Whatever you have that gut reaction to, because we know the brain chemistry is all about like this fear driven thing.
Yeah.
That's why we watch the news media. So we are fearful of turning the shower cold, right? We have this fear of it and we have no idea why. We just don't do it. And so embracing that fear and slightly turning the knob slightly colder for 2 weeks straight, it'll start to adapt your body. And then you go, oh, that wasn't that bad. And then that gives your brain permission to go do the next thing, which is ultimately like if we expand out the time horizon that you try to get, and this is the third concept is expanding your time horizon. You don't need to get healthy today. You need to give yourself 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, year in your thought process, because we have to have these habits slowly build each other. And so this is, I talk about a staircase. We build one little stair first, and then we build another little stair, and then we build another stair. And then 3 months down the road, you have all these stairs that you've climbed, and you keep doing that. The science behind that is actually looping it back to the epigenetics. It takes that much time and consistency and putting yourself into those uncomfortable positions to actually change the epigenetic expression in your body. So when you do that 10-day diet challenge, you're not actually changing any of the chemistry in your body. You're getting a cortisol response, which is why you lost your 10 pounds. But that's not you actually changing the machinery around to keep that 10 pounds off.
It's really interesting. I discovered lately, because I've leaned into this thing. Obviously, when you're 54, you start going, okay, I need to get really serious about this stuff. So
Yeah.
so I work out 3 times a week and I walk every day, basically. So I
Yeah.
move every single day. And
Yep.
this principle, that's exactly the principle that I use, is that every day something will happen where I push a bit more, right?
Yep.
And what I've discovered, and this is just to validate what you're saying, is that the other day I had like a late night or something like that, right? So, and I usually wake up at the same time every morning with no alarm clock, which I'm really grateful for. Like my body just wakes me up. And I woke up and I go, I'm not gonna go. I'm gonna just sort of sleep in or just chill. And my body literally would not let me. It was almost like a withdrawal from not physically moving.
Yep.
And I just laid there for a while. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going. And,
Yeah.
and is that a real thing or is it just psychology? Tell
It
me.
very much is. Yeah. Yeah. There's pieces of your brain that really latch onto that and crave that.
Yeah,
And this is why it's habit change over the routine itself.
yeah,
It's the formation of consistency around habits that motivate us. And so we all have experienced this before, hopefully all have experienced it before, is that when you start doing one thing, the other parts of your life change,
yeah.
right? So you start exercising, you start walking every day, whereas before in the past you failed on that diet. Now maybe that diet will stick because you're developing that habit part of your brain where it's telling you, hey, I need this, I want this, give it to me.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yep.
It's amazing. So no willpower necessary. I basically what I've discovered is that you need willpower to not do the right thing after a while,
Yeah, to a point. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, you have to make a real hard active choice. Once you start to develop these habits, it's yeah, it's like any good addiction.
right, it's remarkable. That's remarkable. Okay, that's wonderful. So I want to share very quickly a
Thought we were going to talk about practicals.
oh, it's very practical. What I'm going to share.
Come on, let's get to the good stuff.
Okay. Give me a second. Okay, let's go to practicals. It's okay. I'll pull it up later. It's fine. What's some of the other stuff?
Dave, let's talk about them, like sleep,
Yeah. So
food, fasting, plunges, hacks, things. What are some of the what are some of oh
So,
my god.
This is
Dude.
footage of my buddy Brandon doing the cold plunge. That's very
yeah,
practical.
and that's me in the end.
Oh, is that you in the end? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yeah, Dave's in the end. He's like Mr. Chill. Like he's sitting there. Me and the other guy, Jake, are just kind of like, oh, this sucks, But like Dave had the chill. He was like, he just kept going on. We're in and out. We're like, it was pretty fun. You could tell he's a Wisconsin boy. He used to, he used to cut holes in the ice in Wisconsin and jump in, and
Yeah, for the Special Olympics.
You probably pulled fish out and stuff like that while you're down
with my bare teeth. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the cold plunges. How does that work? Is that a myth? I mean, I've actually heard people go, "Oh, whatever, it's another fad." There's zero science behind it. What do you say to that?
There's over 50 years worth of supporting research, and this is actually one of my degrees. So one of my multiple degrees actually. So I come from a background of biochemistry, molecular biology. Not only am I a sports medicine doctor, but I also have a master's degree in sports science and rehabilitation. And I'm certified through the American College of Sports Medicine as a clinical exercise physiologist. And I've been doing like intentional cold plunging for over 20 years because the research was clear all the way back into the 90s, early 2000s. And then not to mention, I've also been a huge fan of studying ancient cultures. So cold plunging and saunas have been used for centuries by many, many cultures. And when that happens, when you look across the board, and it doesn't matter what part of the world you come from, you can find cold plunging and saunas as part of their traditions.
So what's the benefit, Dave?
Yeah, the benefit is multiple fold. And so one is going after that consistency, habit change aspect, doing the hard things. So when I get people involved into trying to do cold plunges, is I have them start in the shower and I start having them for a 2-week period rotate that knob just till they get that little weird cold response from their shower, and then they just sit there for 30 seconds. That's the adaptation phase that they need, that will develop the willpower that they need to actually embrace the cold. The research is very clear that 3 minutes is all you really need into a cold situation. Like if you're going into that cold pool, 3 minutes, there's multiple layers of effects of affecting your metabolism, your metabolic flexibility, stimulating, like if you're in the sauna, it's heat shock proteins. You get a huge cardiovascular benefit. But all of it, really, the some of the main things is that you're teaching your body that it's okay to get put into uncomfortable positions. And so to me, that's the biggest benefit. And then, of course, secondary is like the actual health benefit, which is you can lose weight, you can stimulate your brown fat, your insulin resistance, gets improved, all sorts of different things. Brain fog starts to go away. And
What
everyone
about
has
this whole idea of vasodilation? I mean, is there some real value in stretching your veins or whatever it does, like, from a pure
it's keeping you young, and it's keeping you anything, right? This is the point of exercise, is that we do these things to put a stress on our body so that we have a stress response. Exercise, like when you go to lift your weight, you're physically tearing your muscles so that it grows back bigger and stronger. And so anything that technically hurts you is good for you in small quantities. And this is the concept of hormesis and iatrogenics. You can read a great book on this. Nassim Taleb wrote Anti-Fragile about this. That's what this whole concept is about, is that
really, so it
things
applies
in
to
small
physiology
doses
as well. Interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I mean, Dave, come on, man. Like, it sucks doing this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just flat out. It sucks. And so there are some things that just suck, but it don't help you. There are some things that suck and actually help you physiologically. Now, I understand what you're saying, that we need to sort of psychologically address our lack of desire to do hard things, right? And so, but there are hard things like, I could do sprints for 100 yards, but then there's 17 degrees out and you go into a 32 degree water where you almost have to chip ice. I mean, seriously, there's like the real suck of it. Now, is there better when you really sucks more, or is it like, as you
adapt to this, just like what we were talking about before, like my body craves cold. Like to me, it does not suck to go into that cold. To me, it is extremely refreshing because I've felt the other side. When I was dealing with my autoimmune issues and my joints were like swollen twice as big as they were red hot. I used to have really bad burnout issues. I became addicted to cold plunging because it would give me the only like 2 days worth of sanity relief from that in like arthritic flare up. And my brain learned that this is what I need. And so to me, it doesn't suck to go into the cold. It's like this happy reward pleasure system.
You're a different, you're a cryo like animal. So let's just take that. I want to get some more like real value points coming out of this, because you're like a master in so many things. I know you've been talking about sleep lately, and you've got some insights, and you have some insights that you've developed actually from sort of data analysis and data mining. Can you talk a little bit about the value of sleep and maybe what's the role of stages and the length and duration and what's important in sleep and how it relates to your diet? I mean, I know you've got some interesting insights there.
Yeah, I'll start macro and work my way micro with the sleep. Is that macro, I have this concept called the energy bucket that I talk about. It's 6 different categories of health: sleep, mindset, fuel, environment, nervous system, and movement. And these 6 categories all come together, that all of them are interconnected. We can't have one without the other. In other words, we can't just sleep better. We also have to eat better, move better, think better, have a good environment, not have toxic mold around us, blah, blah, blah. And so when we start macro like that, is that we pick 2 or 3 things and they all affect each other. And so by eating better, like if you know that you're a person that, let's just say the 7 o'clock time frame, if you stop eating after 7 o'clock, your sleep will most likely improve. And so all of these are connected together, but we don't know that for you individually. And so now we have these really cool devices that can track these sorts of things. So when we dive into sleep, We now have the different stages of sleep that we can track. We have the total time that we can track. And more importantly, we have these data analysis things that we can do, that we can make correlations of, if I change my diet this way, if I get this many minutes of exercise, then I know that my deep sleep actually starts to improve. And so this is the future of personalized medicine. This is what I've been big on, and why I do tech now, is because I think tech solves all these problems for us on how to actually get better sleep for an individual. And so, which again is, the human brain is really hard. Like if you just hire a coach, they're going to tell you a whole bunch of the normal, well, eat this way, don't eat after 7 o'clock, keep your fat low, blah, blah, blah. Right. But the reality is now we can actually start to measure sleep, these sleep cycles. We can look at our apps and we can say, oh, I had 2 hours of deep sleep. Great. And so we're just starting to get to these insights. The next phase of this, and this is what's going to happen in these next 5 years, is that the insights are going to get much better. They're going to get much more personalized. And this is the game-changing stuff that's happening right now. So that's what I'm excited for that. Now, as far as practical knowledge, sleep, one of the things that I always talk about, the easiest is your lighting situation. Getting outside for 10 minutes and seeing the sun before noon is a huge game changer in the rhythm of your sleep. Getting outside and getting for a walk, especially. Then at night, after 7, 8 o'clock, turning your lights away from blue light and getting it more towards red. And then in your bedroom should be a sanctuary that you're only sleeping. You're never working in bed. You're never bringing your cell phone and laptop into bed. That way your brain always knows that this is the place that I go to sleep. And you get rid of all the blinking little lights. So no computers in your room that have the little blinking lights, your Wi-Fi thing. If they are in there, you duct tape over everything. And so that's like the easy practical guide that 99% of people don't do, but it's the easiest thing to get more deep sleep for everyone.
Is the 8-hour range still an important thing to consider?
No, it isn't. And this has been it's been mismarketed for the past 20 years, is that anywhere from 6 to 9 hours is going to be optimal. And it's different for everyone, and it's different for everyone in the different stages of their life. And going back to the whole, like, challenging and flexibility is good for you. It's perfectly healthy to go through short periods of your life where you're getting less sleep or more sleep than what you should be getting, because we're adaptable human beings, and we need these stressors in order to improve. So like if we're going through a product launch in our company and we know that we have a month where we're going to need to be freaking out and doing a bunch of stuff, it's okay to give ourselves permission to do that shorter amount of sleep, maybe taking some naps. So there's other strategies that we can do, right? Like we can take a 10 to 20 minute nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when our optimal hormone cycle is happening. There's different mitigation things that we can actually do and get into.
Christian, can I ask another one?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm real practically, Dave. This is one of the things, like, we go get our blood test, right? And there's always these ranges on your blood test, like green and red, and what are the things that are outside the conditions. And those have some science behind them, but oftentimes there's things that have changed in terms of research and understanding. One of the things that we've all talked about is the role of cholesterol and HDLs and LDLs. Can we talk a little bit about what you've learned as of late as it relates to BUN, the ratio of those things, or because I was always out of whack, and I'm like, I feel great, but
same thing with triglycerides, right?
So can just tell us give us a few insights as to what's new, and maybe what you may disagree of it with respect to ranges that are traditional.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a big believer that what we think we know now, we for sure won't know later. Like, it used to be medically accepted to drill holes in your brain. And, so we have these working paradigms of which we think the way that things are working. And then we realize that they're not right. And unfortunately, in today's society, we've hung our hat too much on trying to say that we follow the scientific method. And the reality is that all the way back when we look at science, it is foundationally defunct. Most science is actually corrupt. Most science is actually funded by corporations trying to do an agenda. Most science is also done by people who are trying to get their tenure at their college. And so they have to show meaningful progress in their research and show extraordinary results. And so like there's this whole system around research that is not really good. And this is one of the things that I studied in college is how do we understand if research is actually correct or not? And this is what it comes to with cholesterol. We had some pretty big scientific studies way back in the days, and they were just factually incorrect studies. They were causation, not correlation. Causation being like, hey, everyone's riding this airplane when it died, so that means everyone that with high cholesterol while the airplane crashed, like high cholesterol must have caused the airplane to crash. And so like that is a causation statement. And what we now know about 2015, right in that time frame, a whole bunch of new studies started finally coming out about cholesterol that really upended the whole medical system. And so remember that statement, 17 years before clinical practice actually starts to change, right? We're not even to that 17 years yet from 2015. So 99% of the doctors that you are going to talk to still believe the old scientific dogma of what they're been taught, what their mentors taught them. But the reality is in 2015, a lot of cholesterol stuff, like cholesterol is meant to be there, and that what we thought we know for sure is not right. We still don't fully understand it, but we're finally just starting. Like this year, a big research article was published about lean mass and LDL. So you fall into the lean mass individual, where people who have lots of muscle mass have higher LDLs, and that's okay, kind of thing.
Yay!
Yeah, and
That's so encouraging.
but again, like I like, I always like to say this is we don't know what we don't know at this point. And I think that it's still going to take another 10 years to fully understand cholesterol. But to me, my gut instinct of being in this for so long is that there's medically necessary, like when your triglycerides are 700, right? That is like your pancreas is failing, whatever the case may be, that is medically necessary. But this whole range of what's acceptable and not acceptable, I think is completely being defunct. There's tons more research about apolipoprotein B. And you can look up Peter Attia's stuff on this. He's got great articles about apolipoprotein B. That is a much more greater predictor of heart disease problems than overall cholesterol.
Wow.
The fractions of research that I like to follow in the thought processes is that cholesterol is actually a protective mechanism. Every cell of our body needs cholesterol. Every function, every hormone comes from cholesterol. And so the past 20, 30 years, the only thing that we know for sure is that America has gotten severely more unhealthy by following all of the old guidelines of the food pyramid, the cholesterol guideline, the fear of fat, all of those sorts of things. We went from a 15% obesity rate to now a 65% obesity rate or something in that ballpark. It depends on which research article you read. So clearly we're not doing it right with our current thought process of understanding of any of that. And to me, that's the clear indicator that what we think of instinctively, like we know for sure fat is the most nutritious substance on the earth. Meat is the most nutritious substance on earth. It's where all of the necessary things.
I want to get so many conversations in, and just stop me if I'm doing too much scattergun here, Christian. But part of what I really wanted to do was like I'm teeing you up on a couple of things here, right?
Yeah.
And I want to talk about your shirt. You just talked
it's all
about
just
meat.
a bunch of bullshit.
You talked about meat, and there was a whole vegan documentary came out with Schwarzenegger and all these athletes, right? And so, can you talk to us about, is there a myth? Is meat bad for you, or what can you tell us about
Yeah, in
your
specific
T-shirt.
to the most recent, there's two big Netflix documentaries that came out. Both of them are funded by the people who are in Beyond Meat, which is a multi-billion-dollar vegan industry, by the
Oh,
way. So of
wonderful.
course the Netflix documentaries are going to be skewed towards
Right.
trying to teach you this. I'm a balanced approach type of person. So when I look at research, I keep a very open mind. And for me, I'm actually pro-vegan, pro-carnivore, and pro-everything. I look at all of them as tools, and all of them have positives, all of them have negatives. And so when we look at, plants versus meat, meat is the only thing that actually has the complete package that we need as human beings. When we do the vegan diet, we have to take supplements, no question about it.
Really? Wow.
And so, when we eat meat, we
You
digest
mean
most of
legumes
it.
and beans? We can't get our protein from full
We
protein from that?
Well, it's not about the protein; it's about all the different nutrients and things that we
Tofu.
need
Come on,
to
man.
survive. The different vitamins that we need. And in the vegan world, unfortunately, what ends up happening too, based on our genetics, going back to that genetic epigenetic thing, is that a lot of people actually don't have the enzymes to break down the fat out of the plant material. So they're not getting that nutrition, like when they're trying to do their algae supplementation to get their DHA in instead of eating meat stuff. A lot of people just aren't getting that actual nutrition. And this is where you run into the classic thing: 2, 4, and 6 years as a vegan, your skin starts to slough off because your collagen is so bad. You can actually take a vegan's arm, and when you do this, their skin actually disassociates from their body. It's real easy to figure that out. And they hit a huge energy crisis. So they fall trap to a B12 type of, it's called a trap, and they just completely wipe out their energy, and they can't get it back until they start eating meat again. And that's because plants are incomplete. But here goes back to that weird thing. If we use these things as tools, if we use them as short-term tools, 3, 6, 9 months, 12 months, and then we go back to a regular basic omnivore diet, then we can have it as a healthy approach, because it's applying a stress to our body. And the point of applying that stress to the body is to make it better, right?
Yeah.
And so whether we're eating just meat as a carnivore diet or we're eating just plants as the vegan diet, it's applying a stress to our body. It just happens to be that meat and fat are going to be the only nutritionally complete thing that you don't need to take additional supplements. You feel fuller, you can build muscle. Whereas vegans, you're not going to really be building muscle as much as they want to say. The average athlete that's vegan, it's such a small percentage of the people who can actually build muscle being vegan. That is very, very difficult. So it's not that it's wrong or bad. It's just we have to have these realities of the downfalls and the expectations that if we're choosing to go the plant route, we've got to fill in a whole bunch of stuff, and we have to work really hard at it. If we go the meat route, you just cook your steak and hamburger every day, and you don't even have to think about it. And it takes 10 minutes, and poof, you're on your way.
Yeah. Hey, so in addition to what you're saying, you mentioned supplements several times.
Yes.
What else? I'll just talk about myself. I'm confused, basically. They're expensive. There are many. I can't figure out what I need exactly. What's your recommendation with supplements in general? I mean, is there something that's okay, very basic? This is going to be good for you. Get this 100%, or anything else?
Yeah, so it's really just situational. So when I'm working with people, I always just break it down. What is our short-term goal, and what do you want to get out of this? So like for you, as an example, turning 55 soon, you're going to be focused on health span. We know, we can assume that your hormones are starting to go away, that your testosterone is starting to go away. So getting a good vitamin D right as a basis, making sure that you could do your blood lab, and you can look to see where your vitamin D level is.
Okay.
We can look at foundational things of that, and that is the great starting point. So thinking of it as let's fix something first. gone are the days where we're just going to take vitamin A because we heard it's good for our eyes.
Exactly.
Is what I try to push people out of that thought process.
Yeah.
Vitamin D happens to be one of those universal supplements that I think a lot of people just need in today's society. We're not exposed to the outdoors enough, and
Right.
hormone disruptors and things like
Omega-3
that.
seems to be one of those as well. Is
It
accurate?
just depends on what you're eating. So like if you're eating lots of meat and you're getting all that, afraid of fat, you don't really need to supplement. This is all just personal choice on how you want to optimize as well.
Okay.
So,
but bringing this back to genetics, what would you say about supplementation and genetics? I know there's, sometimes useful to understand things like MTHF and issues of, genetic markers that require some personalization in terms of supplementation, right?
Yeah, and we can definitely go down that route. It's one of those things where the genetic test combined with blood work is how we actually test. So the blood work is the epigenetic component, what is actually being expressed in our body. So if we have MTHFR, which is a genetic SNP that doesn't allow us to utilize the B12 pathway all that well, and we may need to supplement with it if we're under. So, and this is why I have the energy bucket the way that it is that if we're under high stress and we have an MTHFR disruption in our genetics, then it will most likely express. And so we'll see different homocysteine levels on the blood panel. If we're not under high stress, MTHFR may not be a factor for us. And so this is why there's so much variability in this, is that you can't just read it and expect it to understand it. Is we have to put it in a personalized way of what are you experiencing currently. And so these things are possible to do. They're just very difficult to do. And again, they need to be timely. We need to be doing this as like, okay, you're under stress now, but in 3 months, your company is going to be sold off or whatever. So do you need to keep taking the B12 after that? And do you need to take it in the methylcobalamin format versus the cyanocobalamin format? Those sorts of things.
I think most of us, when we start supplementation, we just continue like forever.
Exactly.
That may not be the right.
It may not be the
right
thing.
approach,
like
right?
Periodization. So this is when I'm working with people. I have this thing called the Catalyst Journal, where I break it down into 90-day segments. Those 90-day segments are okay. Here's my top 3 health goals that I want to achieve, and then the supplements fulfill and support those 3 goals. So if my main thing is to get a walk every day, I want to build muscle, and I want to help with brain clarity. Let's just say those 3 things, which are really, really common. The walking part is easy. Like if you get sore from walking, we can add things like creatine, amino acids, different things that way, magnesium glycinate to prevent soreness. If you want to build muscle, right, we're definitely doing creatine, making sure that your protein is at a high enough level from a macro counting standpoint. We're definitely looking at amino acids and supplements that way. Brain fog, where's the brain fog coming from? Is it coming from your cardiovascular system? Are you pre-diabetic? Are you, those sorts of things. And then so you can have pinpointed thought processes towards that 3-month goal. And then at the end of those 3 months, you should be reassessing, where am I? Am I good at this point? Am I going to continue on with another 3 months of this, or should I change in to do something else? And then that becomes really fun, because then we have this constant, as things change in our life, we can constantly keep updated with them and keep it relevant to ourselves.
Yeah. Dave, you're awesome, man. Sorry for all the I just want to shotgun. There's so many things I want to talk about. Like we have to do this again, maybe another session part 2.
I think we should, actually.
But dude, you're awesome. We love you. Like you just love the work that you're doing. I love who you are as a person, and I'm thankful to be a friend. We probably need to wrap this up. But there's so many things. Like I want to hit you with hydrogen water. I want to hit you with a lot of different specific things. But
I think Dr. Dave
maybe we'll do it
needs
again.
to be a returning guest on a regular basis here. So
we can definitely do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I mean, honestly, we all think about this all the time, right? What's my quality of life? How long am I going to live? How can I serve my community, my clients, my friends, my family? And this is important stuff, and things are evolving so rapidly, and so inspiring to hear what you said, and to be sort of on top of some of what's the latest, and how can we not like fall behind by 17 years, right? So that would be a nice thing to do to do on a regular
Yeah,
basis here.
if I were to pass along anything, is like I said, it's just simple, consistent habit changes are going to be your game-changing thing.
Yeah.
So incorporating a walk, getting sunshine every day, getting that mindset of having a social connection, good relationships, making sure you're reaching out to your friends and talking to people in the community, making sure your environment is not toxic, that you don't have mold around you, that your gut bacteria are healthy, your nervous system, so your breath rate and things like that, that you're, whatever that may be, meditating for you, breathing through the nose. That's a big topic that I love to talk about. When we're talking movement category, making sure one of the 4 pillars that you have is, strength, heart rate increase, recreation, and then a movement style, having a delineation based off of your goals between those 4 categories. And then sleep is just, I already covered those basics. That is my energy bucket. That is those 6 wheels of categories that if you focus on 2 to 3 of those every 3 months, you will keep building that staircase. And that scientifically, exponentially is your biggest bang for your buck, way more than, oh, let's inject me with peptides and I'm going to go get these stem cells and I'm going to none of that stuff works if you're not doing all of those basic stuff. You have to prime the body so that if you get into all the crazy stuff, that crazy stuff actually works.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, one of the great stories, Christian, you may not know this, but Dave is going from what's the couch potato to 100-mile run.
Yeah, I'm
And
broken. Yeah, I'm on a 1-year transformation right now from broken couch potato to 100-mile ultra endurance athlete. So my race is in October, so I'll be doing a 100-mile run.
So we
I
definitely
started
have to
last
do
October.
like
Oh, we absolutely have to.
He's
do
been
that.
journaling this, and he's got a lot of lessons learned. And I mean, Dave lives it. That's what's cool about it. He's not just sitting behind a desk trying to just help people there, but he is actually pushing the envelope, which is really an honor and a privilege to be able to hang with you, man. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this or listening it somewhere else, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, spread the word. We're going to do this more and more. It's really, really exciting. Thanks for coming on Headspace Live.